125 million going to 80 million in 20 years. That's the most profound aspect of Japan. That's the population direction. And until they open their society up to immigration, it's not going to work. I mean, think about America with going from 340 million people to 180, maybe 200 million. And what would be the prospects of this country if we knew that in 20 years there will be 180 million people living here? What would be the value of real estate? What would be the value of Anheuser-Busch InBev, who sells 96 million barrels of beer a year to Americans, and the prospects is that they'll only end up selling 70 million. Will they still have 13 factories? Will they have to have just 12 or 8 or 7 properly? And how do you manage for that decline? That's Japan. And I don't see a willingness to add in foreigners, and I don't see a particular willingness to open up their market. I've long looked at Japan tobacco, and everyone tells me it's terribly cheap. It is cheap on the numbers. But I've been to meetings with them for the past 25 years, and they still, when they meet with American investors, do so through an interpreter. In China, I met a company about 2 years ago that was only incorporated about 5 years ago. They make flavorings for the cigarette industry, and they were at a tobacco conference, and they presented to the American investors, and one guy spoke in perfect Indianapolis accent. Another guy spoke from upstate New York, and they both gone to school in North America. And the conversation was through two Chinese. One was born in Hong Kong, one was mainland China. They communicated as though they were next door about issues that were familiar to us. And the mental gulf between the Japanese business mind and the American business mind is so much more pronounced, from my perspective, than the Chinese. I asked the head of Japan Tobacco what might happen if they separated the tobacco business from this pharmaceutical or food business, and he said he has no idea what might happen because they don't plan to do it. Well, it's so autocratic, it's almost unexamined thought. But there is no particular reason why pharma should be attached to cigarettes. But it's an unexamined thought, and they just won't even humor it in some capacity, and that's just a different mindset. But profoundly, 125 going to 80 is what drives so much of the answer, I think.